My girlfriend mocked my simple lifestyle and said she deserved better stability and luxury. I agreed without defending myself, simplified my life further, and let go completely. Months later, she reached out after learning peace and value aren't bought the way she thought. You know what? I'm tired of pretending this is enough for me. Those words hit me like a slap while I was washing dishes in my small kitchen, the same kitchen where we'd laughed over homemade pasta just a week before. I turned around, hands still wet, and looked at her. She was standing in the doorway with her arms crossed, designer purse hanging from her shoulder, looking at my apartment like it was a prison cell she'd been trapped in. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. I'm 29, been with her for 2 years, and I thought we were happy. Clearly, I was wrong. What do you mean? I asked, keeping my voice calm. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. This, all of this, your whole lifestyle. She waved her hand around dismissively. I mean, look at this place. You could afford better. You make decent money, but you live like you're still in college. I dried my hands on a towel and leaned against the counter. I like my life simple. Simple. She stepped into the kitchen. You mean cheap? There's a difference. I didn't respond. She continued, her voice rising. Your coworkers have houses. They take real vacations, not camping trips. They drive cars that don't sound like they're about to fall apart. My car runs fine. It's 12 years old. So, she threw her hands up. So I deserve better than this. I deserve stability. Security. Someone who wants to build a real life, not just exist in some minimalist fantasy. The way she said minimalist fantasy felt like she was spitting the words. I stood there, looking at this woman I'd shared 2 years with, and something inside me just settled. Not broke. Settled. You're right, I said quietly. She blinked. What? You're right. You do deserve what you want. She stared at me, clearly expecting an argument, a defense, promises to change. I gave her none of those things. If this isn't enough for you, then it isn't enough, I continued. I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise. Her mouth opened, then closed. That's it. You're not even going to fight for us. I met her eyes. I'm not going to fight to be someone I'm not. If who I am isn't what you want, then we want different things. The silence stretched between us like a canyon. She grabbed her purse tighter. Fine. I guess I know where I stand then. I guess you do. She turned to leave, then stopped. You know what your problem is? You're too content with mediocrity. You'll never have anything real because you're too afraid to want more. I didn't correct her. I wasn't afraid to want more. I just wanted different things than she did. She left that night, and I went back to washing my dishes. The next day, I called the landlord and asked about the smaller studio unit that had just opened up in the building. If she thought my one-bedroom was too simple, she would have had a stroke seeing where I was headed. But here's the thing. I didn't make the move out of spite or hurt. I made it because her words had crystallized something I'd been feeling for months. I didn't need the extra bedroom. I rarely used my living room. Most of my possessions were just things I'd accumulated because that's what people do, not because they brought me any joy or purpose. So I downsized. I sold my couch, my TV stand, half my kitchen supplies. I kept my bed, my small desk, my books, my camping gear, and my cooking essentials. The studio was $600 cheaper per month, and it felt like breathing room instead of constraint. My sister called me 3 days into the move. So I heard you and Melissa broke up. I wedged my phone between my shoulder and ear while I packed books. News travels fast. She called me crying, saying you gave up without even trying. That's one way to see it. What's your way? I sat down on a box. She wanted someone who values the same thing she does. That's not me. There's no compromise that fixes that. My sister was quiet for a moment. Are you okay? Yeah, actually, I am. And I was. Over the next few weeks, I settled into a routine that felt right in a way my life hadn't in years. I worked my job as a software developer, which paid well enough that I could have easily afforded the lifestyle Melissa wanted. But I'd grown up watching my parents work themselves into exhaustion for a big house and nice cars and things that were supposed to prove they'd made it. They retired at 65 with health problems and regrets about all the time they'd spent working instead of living. I decided early on I wasn't going to repeat that pattern. So I lived below my means, invested the difference, and filled my time with things that actually mattered to me. I went hiking every weekend. I volunteered at a community garden on Tuesday evenings. I took a ceramics class at the local arts center. I read books. I cooked meals. I sat in parks and watched the world without feeling like I needed to be doing something productive every second. Melissa had tolerated these things at first, even joined me sometimes. But over time, her comments got sharper. Another hike? Don't you want to do something nice this weekend? Why are we eating at home again? Can't we just go somewhere? You're taking another class? What's the point if it's not for your career? I should have seen the incompatibility sooner. But love, or what I thought was love, made me hope we could find middle ground. The middle ground she wanted was me moving toward her preferences. And I've been slowly doing it, I realized now. Subtle shifts. Fewer hikes. More restaurants. Starting to look at bigger apartments even though I didn't want one. The breakup was a gift, even if she didn't mean it that way. 3 months passed. I started sleeping better than I had in over a year. My ceramics teacher, an older woman named Helen, noticed the change. You seem lighter, she said one evening while I was glazing a bowl I'd made. Lighter. Less weighed down. When you first started this class, you had this tension in your shoulders. It's gone now. I rolled my shoulders experimentally. She was right. Broke up with my girlfriend. Helen smiled knowingly. The one who didn't understand why you were taking ceramics? You remember that? Hard to forget. She came to pick you up once and looked at all of us like we were wasting our lives playing with mud. Helen dipped her brush in glaze. Some people measure wealth in dollars. Others measure it in moments of peace. Neither is wrong, but they rarely understand each other. That stuck with me. Neither is wrong. I didn't think Melissa was wrong for wanting financial security and nice things. But I also wasn't wrong for prioritizing time and peace over accumulation. We were just incompatible, and that was okay. At work, my manager pulled me into a meeting. We want to offer you the senior developer position, he said. 20% raise, but it comes with more responsibility. More hours. Some weekend work during critical deployments. 2 years ago, I would have jumped at it. Now, I asked, how many more hours, realistically? He hedged. 10 to 15 extra per week. Sometimes more during crunch time. I did the math in my head. The raise would be about $18,000 a year before taxes. 10 to 15 hours a week meant at least 500 hours a year, probably more like 600. That worked out to about $30 per hour for the extra time. I was already living comfortably. The extra money would just sit in my investment accounts. But those 600 hours? That was 15 weeks of work. 3.5 months of my life, annually. Can I think about it? My manager looked surprised. Sure. Take a few days. I turned down the promotion. My coworker, Daniel, was floored when he found out. You said no? Do you know how many people would kill for that opportunity? We were getting coffee in the break room. I know. It's a good opportunity for someone who wants it. But not you. I don't want to work more hours, Daniel. I already make enough. He shook his head. Man, Melissa was right about you. I looked at him. What? She told people at the Christmas party that you had no ambition. I defended you, but, turning down a promotion? That kind of proves her point. I poured my coffee slowly. Ambition isn't one size fits all. I'm ambitious about living a life I actually enjoy. That's different from climbing a corporate ladder. But you could have so much more. More what? More money I don't need? More stress? Less time for the things I care about. I turned to face him. I'm not judging you for wanting the promotion, Daniel. Don't judge me for not wanting it. He left the break room, shaking his head. I didn't mind. I'd learned that some people will never understand choosing less money for more life. They see it as settling, as giving up, as lack of drive. But I'd seen the alternative up close. My dad had a heart attack at 58. He survived, but it changed him. He told me once, after he recovered, that he couldn't remember the last time he'd watched a sunset just to watch it. He'd spent 30 years building a career, and he couldn't remember the last sunset. That conversation shaped everything about how I chose to live. Around month 4 post-breakup, I ran into Melissa's best friend, Christina, at a coffee shop. Hey, she said, approaching my table. Can we talk? Sure. She sat down, fidgeting with her cup. Melissa's been really struggling. I waited. She's been dating this guy, Trevor. He's got everything she said she wanted. Big house, expensive car, fancy job in finance. Good for her. Christina frowned. Is it though? She seems miserable. He works all the time. When he's home, he's on his phone dealing with work stuff. They go to expensive restaurants, but she says he's always distracted. I sipped my coffee. Why are you telling me this? Because I think she made a mistake. I think she realizes that now. Then she should figure that out with Trevor or on her own. Don't you still care about her? I considered the question honestly. I care about her as a person. I hope she finds what she's looking for. But we wanted fundamentally different things. That hasn't changed. Christina leaned forward. What if it has? What if she's changed? 4 months isn't enough time to change core values, Christina. At best, she's uncomfortable with the reality of what she said she wanted. That's not the same as actually changing. She left looking disappointed. But I meant what I said. The thing about getting what you think you want is that sometimes it shows you what you actually needed was something else entirely. But that's a lesson everyone has to learn for themselves. I couldn't, and wouldn't, be someone's backup plan after they tested the waters elsewhere. Life continued in its simple, peaceful rhythm. I finished a series of bowls in my ceramics class and gave them to my sister for her birthday. She cried when she opened them. You made these? Yeah. Took me weeks to get them right. She ran her fingers over the glaze. They're beautiful. These are the best gift I've ever gotten. Her husband, Tom, looked at the bowls and then at me. How much would something like this cost in a store? I don't know. $80 each, maybe. You should sell them. I laughed. I make them because I enjoy making them. The moment I turn it into a business, it becomes work. My sister got it. Some things are worth doing just because they make you happy. Exactly. Tom still looked confused, but he nodded. That weekend, I went on a 3-day backpacking trip in the mountains. Just me, my tent, my thoughts, and miles of trail. No cell service. No emails. No expectations. I sat by a lake on the second night, watching the stars emerge, and felt a contentment so complete it almost hurt. This was wealth. Not the number in my bank account, but this moment, this peace, this freedom to just exist without apology. Melissa would have hated this trip. She would have complained about the lack of showers, the freeze-dried food, the early mornings. And that was okay. She was allowed to hate things I loved. But I wasn't going to diminish my joy to accommodate someone who saw it as worthless. Month 6 arrived with autumn colors and a text message. It was from Melissa. Hey, I know it's been a while. Can we talk? I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me was curious. Part of me knew exactly where this was headed. I responded, about what? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. I've been thinking a lot. About us. About how things ended. I was wondering if we could meet for coffee. I don't think that's a good idea. Please. Just one conversation. I should have said no. But some old instinct toward closure made me agree. We met at a neutral coffee shop on a Sunday afternoon. She looked good, designer clothes, professional hair, perfect makeup. She also looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. Thanks for meeting me, she said, sitting down. What did you want to talk about? She laughed nervously. Not one for small talk anymore. I'm not trying to be rude, Melissa, but we both know this isn't a casual catch-up. She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. You're right. Okay, I'll just say it. I think I made a mistake. With Trevor? Her eyes widened. You know about Trevor? Christina mentioned it. Right. She looked down. Trevor and I broke up 2 weeks ago. I waited. He was everything I said I wanted. Successful, ambitious, financially stable. We went in nice places, did expensive things. She paused. And I was more lonely with him than I'd ever been in my life. I'm sorry you went through that. She looked up. Are you? Sorry. I don't wish you pain, Melissa. I never did. But you're not surprised. Should I be? She bit her lip. I guess not. You tried to tell me, in your way. You just accepted what I said and let me go. I was so angry about that. I thought it meant you didn't care. It meant I respected your choice. Or maybe you knew I'd figure it out eventually. I shook my head. I didn't know anything. I just knew we wanted different things, and I wasn't going to pretend otherwise. She was quiet for a moment. I drove past your building last week. Saw you coming out with your hiking backpack. You looked happy. Really, genuinely happy. I am. Are you seeing anyone? No. Something like hope flickered in her eyes. So there's no one? I saw where this was going and decided to head it off. Melissa, why are you here? I told you. I made a mistake. You made a choice. You chose what you thought would make you happy. It didn't. That's not the same as making a mistake about us. But I was wrong about what I needed. Maybe. Or maybe you just haven't found the right version of what you want yet. I leaned back. Trevor wasn't right for you. That doesn't mean I was. We were good together. We were incompatible together. There's a difference. Her voice cracked slightly. I miss you. You miss the idea of me. Or maybe you miss the comfort of what we had. But you don't miss the reality, Melissa. You hated my lifestyle. You resented my choices. That didn't change just because Trevor didn't work out. What if I've changed? Have you? Or are you just unhappy with your other option? She didn't answer immediately. Finally, she said, I don't know. That's honest at least. I've been thinking a lot about what you said. About deserving what I want. You were right. But I'm starting to think I didn't actually know what I wanted. So figure it out. Can't we figure it out together? I shook my head slowly. No, because I'm not a placeholder while you work through your priorities. And I'm not going to spend another year slowly changing myself to fit someone else's evolving definition of enough. I wouldn't ask you to change. Maybe not intentionally, but it would happen. You'd start with little comments again. Why don't we go out more? Why do I spend so much time on hobbies? Why don't I want the promotion? I met her eyes. I've built a life I love, Melissa. I'm not going to apologize for it or modify it to make someone else comfortable. Tears welled in her eyes. So that's it. We just never try again. There's no try again. There's just two people who want different lives trying to pretend they're compatible. But what if? What if what? What if you learn to love simplicity? What if I suddenly want luxury? I shook my head. Those aren't small differences, and they're not things people just change about themselves. She wiped her eyes. I thought you'd at least be open to a conversation. This is the conversation. And my answer is that I care about you enough to not let us fall back into something that made us both unhappy. I wasn't unhappy with you. You were unhappy with my choices, which is the same thing. And I was starting to be unhappy with constantly feeling like I wasn't enough. That landed. She stared at her coffee. I never meant to make you feel that way. I know, but impact matters more than intent. We sat in silence for a while. Finally, she asked, do you think I'll ever find what I'm looking for? I think you're looking for external things to create internal peace. And that's a game you can't win, no matter how much money or status you accumulate. That sounds like something Helen would say. I smiled. You remember Helen? Your ceramics teacher. Yeah. She smiled back, sadly. You talked about her classes like they were the highlight of your week. I thought it was weird. And now I think maybe I was the weird one for not understanding why making bowls could matter to someone. They're not just bowls. I know. They're meditation. Presence. Creating something with your hands. She recited the words like she'd heard them before. You tried to explain it to me once. You weren't ready to hear it. And you think I'm still not ready? I chose my words carefully. I think you're in a transitional place. You're questioning things, which is good. But you're also hurt, and maybe a little desperate for something familiar to hold on to. I'm not going to be that for you. Because you don't trust me? Because I respect both of us too much to go backward. She nodded slowly, processing. You've really thought about this. I've had 6 months to think about it. And in 6 months, you never once considered reaching out. No. Why not? Because I meant what I said when you left. You deserved what you wanted, and it wasn't me. That didn't change just because I missed you sometimes. You missed me. Of course I did. You were part of my life for 2 years. But missing someone isn't a good enough reason to re-enter a relationship that didn't work. She finished her coffee in silence. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, less hopeful, more resigned. What are you going to do now? With your life? Same things I've been doing. Work enough to pay my bills. Spend my time on things that matter to me. Live simply. Be happy. That's really enough for you? More than enough. She gathered her purse. I should go. Okay. At the door, she turned back. For what it's worth, I hope you find someone who appreciates what you've built. I appreciate what I've built. That's what matters. She smiled, sad but genuine. Yeah, I guess it is. After she left, I sat with my own coffee for another hour. I wasn't upset, wasn't relieved, just settled. Some people spend their whole lives searching for more money, more status, more things, thinking that somewhere out there is the combination that will finally make them feel complete. I'd realized early that completeness doesn't come from accumulation. It comes from alignment. My life aligned with my values. My days aligned with my priorities. My choices aligned with who I actually was, not who society said I should be. That alignment was worth more than any amount of money or status. Melissa would figure out her own path eventually. Maybe she'd find someone who wanted the same upward mobility she craved. Maybe she'd realize that peace comes from within, not from external circumstances. Either way, it wasn't my journey to guide. I finished my coffee and walked home to my small studio. My space. My sanctuary. My enough. The next morning, I went to my ceramics class. Helen was working on a large platter, her hands steady and sure. How was your coffee date? She asked without looking up. How did you? You had that look last week. The look people get when they know they're about to face something from their past. I sat down at my wheel. It was fine. She wanted to try again. I said no. And how do you feel? I wedged my clay, feeling the familiar resistance and give. Like I made the right choice. Good. She finally looked at me. You know what the hardest thing about living intentionally is? What? Watching other people not understand it. Seeing them pity you or judge you for choosing less in their eyes, when you know you're actually choosing more of what matters. Yeah. But here's the secret they don't tell you. Eventually, you stop caring what they think. You get so comfortable in your own choices that outside opinions just roll off. I started centering my Qley. I think I'm getting there. You are. She went back to her platter. You absolutely are. That weekend, I went hiking again. Different trail, same piece. I set up camp by a stream, cooked a simple meal over my portable stove, and watched the day fade into twilight. My phone, tucked away in my pack, had no signal. No one could reach me. No one needed me to be anywhere or anyone. I was just a person in the woods, existing in a moment that cost almost nothing and meant everything. This was what Melissa couldn't understand. She thought I was afraid of wanting more. But I wanted more than she could imagine. I just wanted different mores. More time in nature. More moments of presence. More freedom from the endless cycle of earning and spending. More peace. More purpose. More alignment between my values and my days. You can't buy that at any price point. You can only create it through choices, boundaries, and the courage to live differently than you're told you should. I fell asleep that night to the sound of water over stones, and I didn't think about Melissa once. When I got back to the city Sunday evening, there was a text from my sister. Melissa called me. Said you two talked. You okay? I replied, better than okay. Completely at peace. Good. Because she seemed to think you'd change your mind eventually. Not happening. I know. Just wanted to check. My sister got it. She'd watched me build this life intentionally, brick by brick, choice by choice. She'd seen me turn down the big promotion, downsize my apartment, say no to opportunities that everyone else said I was crazy to refuse. And she'd also seen me get happier with each simplification. There's freedom in enough. Freedom in knowing what you need versus what you're told to want. Freedom in building a life so aligned with your values that other people's opinions lose their power. 3 months later, I heard through mutual friends that Melissa was dating someone new. A lawyer. Very successful. Very busy. I hoped it worked out for her, genuinely. Everyone deserves to find their version of happiness, even if that version looks nothing like mine. As for me, I kept living my simple, intentional life. I got promoted to senior developer eventually, but at a different company that valued work-life balance over endless hours. The pay increase was modest, but the culture was right. I kept taking ceramics classes. Started teaching beginners 1 evening a week. Kept hiking. Kept reading. Kept cooking. Kept living below my means and investing the difference. My financial advisor told me I'd be able to retire at 45 if I wanted. I probably wouldn't. I liked my work when it was balanced, but having the option was its own kind of security. The kind that came from choosing less consumption instead of more income. 1 year after the coffee shop conversation, I met someone at a hiking meetup. She was sitting on a rock during a break, reading a book about minimalist philosophy. We started talking. Her name was Rachel. She was a teacher, and she lived in a van she'd converted herself. I know it sounds cliché, she said, laughing. But I spent 10 years working in corporate marketing, making good money, absolutely miserable. One day I just stopped. Quit. Sold everything. Built the van. Do you regret it? Not for a single second. I make a third of what I used to. I'm 20 times happier. We talked for 3 hours on that trail. At the end, she said, this is going to sound forward, but do you want to grab coffee sometime? Actual coffee, not trail mix. I smiled. I'd like that. Dating someone who understood voluntary simplicity was completely different than dating someone who saw it as a character flaw. Rachel didn't question why I lived in a studio when I could afford more. She didn't roll her eyes at my hobbies or suggest we go somewhere expensive instead of cooking at home. We went on hikes, cooked meals together, took turns reading aloud from books we loved. She showed me her van conversion, solar panels, compact kitchen, bed that folded into a desk. This is incredible, I said, looking at the craftsmanship. Thanks. I learned everything from YouTube. She smiled. My family thinks I'm crazy. My mom keeps asking when I'm going to get a real apartment and settle down. And what do you tell her? That I am settled, just in a different way than she expected. I understood that completely. 3 months into dating Rachel, she asked, have you ever thought about trying van life? I've thought about it. Never seriously. Want to try seriously? We could build you one. Take a year, travel, work remotely. My first instinct was all the reasons it wouldn't work. My job, my apartment, my routine. But then I remembered that routines can change, jobs can be negotiated, and apartments can be subleased. And sometimes the best parts of life come from saying yes to something that scares you a little. Let's do it, I said. We spent 6 months building out a van for me. I negotiated a remote work arrangement with my company. 3 months trial, see how it goes. I sublet my studio to a graduate student who was thrilled to find something affordable. And then Rachel and I hit the road. We spent a year traveling. National parks, quiet beaches, small mountain towns. I worked my 40 hours a week from coffee shops and campgrounds. She taught English online to students in Asia. We spent our free time hiking, reading, cooking, existing. It was the best year of my life. At the end of it, my company made my remote arrangement permanent. Your work hasn't suffered at all, my manager said on a video call. If anything, you're more productive. Turned out I worked better when I was happier. Who knew? Rachel and I eventually parked our vans on a piece of land her friend owned in Oregon. We built a small cabin together. Nothing fancy, just enough. A bedroom, a kitchen, a porch where we could watch the sunset. The whole thing cost less than a year's rent in the city. We grew vegetables, kept chickens, read books by the fire. Some of our friends from our old lives came to visit and said things like, "This is nice for a getaway, but could you really live here full time?" And we'd smile and say, "We do live here full time." They never quite got it, but that was okay. You don't need everyone to understand your choices. You just need to understand them yourself. One evening, 2 years after the coffee shop conversation with Melissa, Rachel and I were sitting on our porch watching the sunset. "Do you ever miss your old life?" she asked. "Which part?" "Any of it. The city, the apartment, the relationship." I thought about it honestly. Sometimes I miss certain moments. But do I miss the life itself? No, not even a little. Me neither. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I spent so long thinking I needed more to be happy. Bigger apartment, better job, nicer things. And then I got all of that and felt emptier than ever. What changed? I realized I was trying to fill an internal void with external stuff. And that never works. The void just gets bigger because you're ignoring what it's actually asking for, which is presence, purpose, peace, connection. She gestured at the sunset. Moments like this that you can't buy or achieve or accumulate. I kissed the top of her head. "I'm glad you figured it out. I'm glad you already knew." We sat in comfortable silence as the sky turned orange, then pink, then purple. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. Whatever it was could wait. This moment, this peace, this presence, this person beside me, was more valuable than any notification. Later, when we went inside, I checked my phone out of curiosity. It was a message from Christina, Melissa's friend. "Hey, I know it's random, but Melissa got engaged. Wanted to let you know in case you heard through the grapevine. Hope you're well." I showed Rachel. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Happy for her. Genuinely." Yeah. She found someone who wants what she wants. That's good. You're not curious about who he is? Nope. I set my phone down. Her journey isn't mine. I hope she's happy. That's all. Rachel smiled. "You know what I love about you?" "What?" "You don't hold on to things. People, resentment, expectations. You just let things be what they are. Holding on too tight to the wrong things keeps you from appreciating the right ones." Is that from a book? Nope. Just something I figured out along the way. She kissed me. "Well, I appreciate you figuring it out." That night, lying in bed in our small cabin, I thought about the path that had led here. The breakup that felt like failure but was actually redirection. The choices that looked like settling but were actually liberation. The relationship that ended so I could find one that fit. Melissa had mocked my simple lifestyle and said she deserved better stability and luxury. She was right. She did deserve what she wanted. And I deserved what I wanted too. Peace, presence, purpose, freedom. A life built on my terms, aligned with my values, rich in the ways that actually mattered. I had let go completely, not out of defeat, but out of clarity. And in that letting go, I'd found everything I'd been looking for. Sometimes the best thing you can do is agree when someone says you're not enough for them. Because you're not enough for them. And they're not enough for you. And that's perfectly okay. The world has enough room for all of us to find our own versions of enough. I fell asleep grateful, not for the breakup itself, but for the clarity it brought. And in the morning, I'd wake up to another day of the simple, peaceful, intentional life I'd built. That was more than enough. It was everything.